This is the Rockin' J Farrier. Years ago, I was lived out in the boonies, off the grid, on a little homestead, and I had this old yeller water truck that I hauled water with, and wrote this poem about my truck, and it's called Old Yeller. I've got an old truck that I call Old Yeller. He was made in the 50s, but he's a pretty good old feller. I used him to haul water to my critters and such. Other than that, he doesn't do too much. Now, he ain't real legal, except for the slow-moving sign, but on the back roads, I reckon it's just fine. Now, I had this problem that started to bug me a bit. I could haul 3 or 4 loads, and then all of a sudden, he'd quit. Now, it was usually on a hill or some obnoxious place, and I'd have to get out and get right in his face. Now, the first time it happened, it was like I was in school. Then I finally figured out that he wasn't getting fuel. So I unhooked the fuel hose and blew back through the line, started him back up, and everything seemed fine. Then it started to happen sometimes every load. And I could just about count on laying down in the road. Now, it wasn't too bad if the weather was nice. But when it was cold and wet, it made you think twice. Then it happened twice on the same load one day. And I knew that I couldn't stand to drive the old truck that way. So I pulled him out in front of the shop to see if I could find out what it was that kept stopping me. I siphoned out the gas and unbolted the tank, got the fuel line unhooked, and gave it a yank. I turned the tank over and dumped it out on the ground, and other than a tiny bit of gas, there was nothing to be found. So I took the fuel gauge out and got the sun just right, and I could see that there was something lodged by the inlet pipe. I put some air down the line and blew it out of the way and tipped the tank over, and to my dismay, out rolled this thing that looked like a small little rock. But it wasn't very heavy, which was a shock. I grabbed it with my pliers, and it shattered and broke. It was hollow inside like an egg without a yolk. Then I determined by the shape that it was a piñon nut from one of the trees that had sat in the gas and kind of petrified, it seemed. Now, how it got there is anybody's guess, but it gave me lots of consternation, I must confess. All that time that I'd crawled under that truck on the road, which wasn't too bad every 3rd or 4th load, I had reckoned it wasn't worth the time that it took to take out the tank and give it a look. It only took a minute and I'd be on my way. I'd fix it some other time, is what I'd say. But if you could add up all the time that I spent laying on my back, I'd been there a while, but I didn't keep track. I could have fixed the problem a couple years ago and saved lots of time and cussing, don't you know? Now, there's a moral to the story of the pine nut in the tank. I don't know how it got there, so there's no one to thank. Old Yeller is fixed and running like he should, but there's a couple of things I should have understood. If you're ever plagued with a problem in life, you don't know the cause or who gave you the strife, take time right away to find the root of your sorrow and have relief today and not tomorrow. Now, if the problem was born in a selfish or devious way, what goes around comes around, they say.